Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible to all of you and you're able to see our screen. Can I get a quick confirmation in the chat? Yes, perfect, Risha. Thank you very much for the confirmation. So good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar and interact with all of you today. Thanks for registering for this webinar. In the next 1 hour, what we are going to do is we are going to understand more about the most popular or the most buzzing word in the market, that is generative AI, and how it is creating an impact in the financial services industry. That's something we are going to discuss. So I have with me my colleague, Abhishek Gupta. Both of us would be taking you across what Gen AI is all about, how is it making a difference in the market, and how the modern generative AI is creating some kind of new solutions, new possibilities, new opportunities in the field of financial services. And what can be the next steps for you? If you're thinking about implementing Gen AI in your company, what are the next steps for you? This is what we are going to discuss in the next 1 hour. The way we have structured it is, we do not want to bore you with the presentation for a long time. So maybe by next 25 minutes, we'll be completing the presentation. And then we have a demo of a solution which we would like to showcase it across to you, how ChatGPT can be plugged across in the financial services industry. And then we'd like to open it up for a discussion to discuss and understand how you are envisioning generative AI in your domain. So feel free to share with us the views at the end. So good. So time for us to jump into the discussion at this point of time. So can we move on to the agenda, Abhishek, please? Yeah. So as I mentioned, we are going to talk about AI. I'll just give a broad context about what AI is all about. Then what generative AI can do for you, foundational models, large language models. That's something we'll discuss. And basically, I mean, whenever I talk to my audience, I try to cover the 5W1H of any new concept that we introduce. Why, what, when, where, who. All these aspects you should be aware of when we talk about the generative AI and the large language models. We will discuss that. And is ChatGPT and generative AI the same? Because we know that we are using it interchangeably, like how people used to discuss AI and ML in the same context. The same way we are going to understand, is there a difference to it? And what are the major opportunities? Some risk associated with it, which will be an open discussion, and then a demonstration of the models we are going to have a discussion around. Quickly, let's move on to the next slide, Abhishek. Yeah. So just to set the context, because I've been interacting with different clients over the last few years, AI, definitely everyone is interested in, no doubt about it. But just to set the perspective right, what is AI? AI is nothing but replicating human intelligence in the machines. Anything that an intelligent human being can do, can I make a machine do that? That's what we call it as AI. So in the name of artificial intelligence, we are trying to create machines which can do tasks, which can do activities, which an intelligent human being would do. If I can make a machine learn, I call it as machine learning. If I can make a machine talk, I can call it as ChatGPT, understanding the natural language. So depending on the activities of an intelligent human, how are you mapping it and giving it to a machine? That's what we call it as AI. Always say this, AI is a broad science. It is not technology alone. Of course, we are implementing it with the help of technology, but it is an amalgamation of sciences, if you notice. We talk about psychology, we talk about biology, we talk about neurology. Almost every science associated with human beings, we are trying to decode and give it to a machine. That's what AI is all about. And in the context of AI, machine learning is something which has become popular over the last 10 years. Even though AI is pretty old for the last 68 years, machine learning has become very popular, and we are in the third era of AI, what we call it as a golden era of artificial intelligence. That is the age of machine learning, because machine can learn by themselves from the data. Of course, you all remember in the second generation AI, that is in the late 1980s, we used to create autopilot kind of applications where rule-based intelligence used to make a big difference. But today, we are talking about creating intelligent machines, whereby from the data, we are able to observe, we are able to make the machines interpret, decode, reason, learn from the data that is available. So last 10 years, The world has seen AI to a greater extent, machine learning to a greater extent, thanks to companies like Google, Amazon, OpenAI kind of companies. Democratization of AI has happened. And now, in the last 2, 3 years, the subset of machine learning, deep learning, has taken a bigger root. Deep learning, when I say that, deep learning is something replicating the human brain, the power of neural networks, the way the human brain is able to process the information through neurons. Can I replicate it in a machine with the help of artificial neural networks? That's something that has been a deeper research for a long time. Today, thanks to deep learning kind of concepts, thanks to the evolving technologies like cloud, big data, open source communities over the last 15 years, machine learning and deep learning has created a lot of applications in this space. And thanks to deep learning, we have generative AI. Thanks to ChatGPT, generative AI is a buzzword in the market today. Now, with that in mind, I would like to hand it over to Abhishek now to take you through the ChatGPT models and what this whole generative AI is all about. What do you mean by foundational models? He's going to throw light on that. I hope you understood the context where we fit it, because I started at 50,000 feet level on talking about AI. From there, I brought it down to machine learning and deep learning. Now, Abhishek will talk more about generative AI. Over to you, Abhishek.
Hey, thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks for setting the context. And it certainly helps. I mean, when you understand the background of everything, and since we will have a bit of a technical discussion on how things work today, so that certainly helps. And thank you. So in terms of what I'm going to present, and I'll keep it high level. The idea is to keep it at a 30,000, but also talk about some level of technical landscape. How does it work? What is the logic behind everything? And then move on to the demo part, because we can talk all context and literature, but if you don't see it working by ourselves, so we'll not understand the models, right? So there are a few major topics which I wanted to cover, and I'll start with generative AI, which Lakshmi had already touched upon, right? So conventionally speaking, when we are talking about artificial intelligence, you have heard of things like prediction, right? If a particular event is going to happen or not, pattern recognition. Then we can talk about recommendation systems. So you guys are subscribed to Netflix, right? And the Netflix recommends all those shows and movies to you, right? So those are the type of artificial intelligence or machine learning models which have been there since some time. And over the past year, like until last year, that was the main status quo. But if you talk about recently, ever since the release of ChatGPT, generative AI has become one of the buzzwords now. But what is it all about? Corollary to, if you talk about what was there in previously, in terms of generative AI, we are talking about systems which, we are talking about a type of artificial intelligence that can produce content. So over here, you can see it's like an open-ended AI model, right? It's not going to discriminate between any particular type of data, but generate new content. And that is what I'm trying to depict over here. So if you talk about models like GPT 3.5, which is, can access it via ChatGPT, you can generate text. Similarly, you can use a DALI model to generate images. On the ML, on the music side, you have Google, which are building LLM models which can generate music. At the same time, other things like code generation, content generation. These are different type of generative AI which is there in the market and coming up. So that was a brief on what generative AI is all about. But there is one key aspect of generative AI which not many know about, and this is where we wanted to understand what is a foundational model. So foundational model at the very base is the type of an AI model that are trained on huge amounts of data. Just as a fact, foundational model is something which was coined by the Stanford researchers. It is like not a colloquial term in the AI world, but it was termed by the Stanford researchers who were researching in this particular field. So when you talk about foundational models, it is something where a large amount of data in there are various ways you can train this ML models, which you just talked about. But in terms of foundational models, we are talking about models which are not, unsupervised learning is provided. So these are models with a large set of data, different type of data has been provided that can be in the form of text, images, speech, or, all the data which is available on the internet. And that is trained on that. So earlier, what used to happen, if you're trying to build a model for a specific task, let's say a categorization, you have to build a model, you have to teach the model what exactly the outcome has to be. Similarly, small models for very use case specific was the status quo, what used to happen earlier. What the Stanford researchers predicted that there would be a paradigm shift where instead of building small models, we are going to build a large model which will call as a foundational model. And these foundational models can then be fine-tuned. using data, labeled data, which you can provide, and data which you have proprietary, and then make it work as per your requirements. So instead of having small models, there will be just one foundation model catering to all the use cases which we want to learn. I know you guys have already used AI models in a certain capacity. So when we talk about, I mean, and you have heard, right? We put in prompts when we want some of our tasks to be completed. When you are adding prompts, that is where you are fine tuning your foundational models for a specific task. So that is the background what foundational model is, and upon this is what is a large language model. Large language model is essentially a subset of a foundational model, but this is majorly built and trained on large amounts of textual data. There are several use cases which we have seen, as you can see in this particular chart. Large language models are a subset of several. First and foremost, there's an ML, and then there's a deep learning. Under deep learning, you have foundational models, and under foundational models, you have large language models. So it's a subset of various things. It is a model which can be supervised. It can be trained in a supervised manner, unsupervised manner. It can be trained with an unstructured data, structured data. So all sorts of information can be put into a large language model, but textual, right? And primary use case, as you know, we have all used it via ChatGPT and all, language translation, summarization of large text, chatbots and all, Q&A. These are some things which you have already used. And obviously, there are some benefits which we have understood over there as well. In terms of, since it's a large foundational model, or let's say an LLM model, you can use a particular model for different tasks, and you can fine tune it and use prompts to cater to very specific tasks which you require. What I provided here was also a few more information in terms of what you see over here. Recently, Meta, Facebook launched their own LLM model, which they call as a Llama 2. It is an open source model, and this was the paper which I was trying to study. And over there, they had shared the data, the type of information they have captured. So 3.3 TB of information which they crawled from the internet. Then Wikipedia articles, books, research papers, code data from GitHub and Stack Exchange. These are all the different type of data which was put into the Llama model and was released publicly for us to use. And one key factor is in LLMs, we use the transformer model. This is kind of an architecture of how these things work out. It was developed by Google in 2017, and from there on, LLMs became a very big thing, right? And the real life application started to happen. So this was a brief, in terms of what LLMs are all about. Right. But what about the use cases? Where are we seeing LLMs make use of? There are various places where the real life applications are happening. I have taken 4. I can show it to you as well in terms of what these tools are. In terms of finance, if I talk about, there are tools like FinChat.io. It is built on GPT-4 or GPT-3 model. It is basically, instead of presenting, I'll just show you what it looks like. Yeah. So this is, I hope the screen is visible again. What I'm trying to present is the FinChat model, which it is built very specific to the finance domain. So what you can see is this is a kind of a ChatGPT kind interface where you have the data public of all the publicly traded companies has been uploaded in this particular LLM model. And simple, the way you use ChatGPT, you can go ahead and ask questions about I'm not sure if you can use it right now, but this is the interface which I wanted to just show. Similarly, if I talk about other use cases in where LLM can be we can use LLMs or healthcare. Glasshealth.ai is also a product launched into the market. This has been specifically trained on the medical records. So all the physicians, the practitioners in the medical industry, right? They have all the diagnosis which they have done, and based on that data, this particular model has been built. And the beauty is a particular practitioner or any user can go there, write down what are the things they're suffering from, and it can provide a pretty accurate diagnosis, I feel. I mean, you should not rely on that, but completely rely on that. You should always check with your doctor, but that is something which is already there. Finally, on the education side, Khan Academy trained all their, like if you have been to a Khan Academy website, you know the type of content which they have, right, for the education. So what they have did, they trained the LLM models. Again, this was a GPT model which was used using all the content they have created. And they created a product called Khan Amigo, which is basically, if you have, it's a personal tutor at the end of the day. But the best part is when you ask a particular chatbot what would be the answer to a particular question, it will give you responses in terms of the final answer. But what in terms of LLMs, what happens is it can also help you break down. I mean, in school, we have solved math problems, right? We have to solve it step by step. So this GPT-4 model can help you understand what would be the step-by-step problem. If a particular student has made an error in any particular step, this model can predict that and let's say point out that, and then it can help you solve the problems. And similarly, on the customer service side, we have seen there are many tools. I mean, one of them we will be demoing at the end of this webinar. But personalized customer support, human-like conversation, these are some of the use cases which we have seen. At the end of the day, LLMs can do a lot, but if you train the data specific to your need, it can be mastered for some. That is why the heading over there, jack of all trades, but can be mastered for some. Right. But how does Gen AI work? I mean, this is very technical in terms of the functionality and the what's the under the hood of this particular platform. And I'll try to cover it from a 50,000 feet. So at the very base, it is based on neural networks. Neural networks are nothing but they are trying to imitate how our brain works. Just the way we have learned things over the years as we grow up, we started finding patterns and associations between different things. So let's say, for example, if we consider this two-layer neural network, which I'm trying to show here, if you consider
Abhishek,
the word,
sorry to interrupt. I think you need to get back to the presentation. I think still showing FinChat.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just a moment.
Yeah.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Right. So yeah, I was talking to you. Sorry, apologies for that. But I was talking to you about how generative AI works. So in terms of the underlying architecture, which is the neural network which I was talking to you about. So if you can see, there are in a neural network, it can be built in different several layers and involved. So that there's an input layer and an output layer, which the model you can have the interface, and there are multiple hidden layers in between. It works just the way our brain works. There are several parameters and weights which are involved when it comes to neural networks. So I'll take an example. If you're trying to generate a particular content, and let's say I am that those are the inputs which you give to a particular model, and the model is trying to come up with what would be the next best text over there. So let's say I am giving a speech is what you want to do, what you want as an output. But for some reason, the neural network is not being able to do that. So what it does, since it can adjust its weights for different parameters, and it can give you the desired outcome. So over here, there's one example which I just took, generative. Let's say if you put in the word generative, what are the multiple options which can come out? It can be generative AI, it can be generative design. So based on how the neural network has been trained, or let's say the LLM has been trained, it can predict the outcomes going forward. Again, generative AI models are also of various types. What we have been discussing so far are LLMs, but there are things like generative GANs. GANs are majorly used for image creation. You must have heard of Mid-Journey and all those AI images which are floating around the internet. So over here, these are all different type of models which we can use to do a very use case specific task. Right. Now, in terms of ChatGPT, I mean, we know we have covered ChatGPT a lot and everyone knows to a certain extent, but I just wanted to share my understanding so that it's you can explain it in a very simple manner. So at the end of the day, ChatGPT is an application which is built on an LLM model, which is GPT-3. And the architecture behind is transformer model. But there are certain facts which you might not know. And I mean, if you have done your research, you would know. At the end of the day, ChatGPT is doing nothing but predicting what would be the next word. When we give prompts, that is the context which you share with ChatGPT. And based on that, it will predict what would be the next word. It has a 50,000 word vocabulary. So essentially what it does, I've shown an example here. The best thing about AI is its ability to, what would be the next word? Now, what ChatGPT would do, list down all the 50,000 words in its vocabulary and provide a probability what should be the best option as the next word, right? As you can see, learn, predict, make, the model has provided probability weightage for each of those words. And based on that, then this is happening how it has been trained. So it might have been the case that over the in terms of the data size, or let's say the data on which ChatGPT was trained, learn is the best option after ability to, and that is why it is receiving the highest percentage weight over there. But that is where one key concept of ChatGPT comes into play, which is called as a temperature. So what would happen is, if I ask the same model the same question, ideally the answer should be same, right? If it is trying to be simply select the best option, or let's say the highest probability option from its model. But that is not how it works. There is something which is called as a temperature in a model, where it will provide, so a temperature ranges from 0 to 1. The higher the temperature, the more creative the answers would be. So let's say if the temperature is set, usually when you are using ChatGPT, it has got a 0.7 temperature. What happens is, the higher the temperature, the randomness will come into play. instead of choosing the highest probability, it might choose the third option or might choose the fifth option. That is why ChatGPT is able to give you the different responses for the same question. And how does it work? Those are again very simple. It has been trained on weights, different weights. It changes its weights. It can give feedback in terms of RLHF, which is nothing but reinforced learning, and where we have to give human feedback. Right. And one particular point which I also wanted to cover was this particular research paper where they showed the type of training which was given to different models. So GPT-3, which is again a very old model now, as I was mentioning, has a 50,000 vocabulary size. Context length is nothing but the length of input which you can give to the model. If you must have seen, if you're trying to summarize an article in ChatGPT and you basically copy paste the entire thing, it might not take the anything above 2048 in terms of context length. Similarly, parameters are something which are basically different weights on which the model has been trained. So let's say, for example, if we consider what is a cat, right? How does the model understand? Based on the information it has been trained on, it will understand that cat is is a particular animal. It has got 2 ears, fur, 4 legs. These are different parameters which the model understands. So just the way we can reason about things, right? The GPT model can reason about different things, and that is where the parameters part come into play. And finally, it is trained on 300 billion tokens. Tokens are nothing but words. I mean, it's not one word is not is equals to one token. It's usually a subset, but it just gives you the context of the different training it had. So GPT-3 over here has been trained on 300 billion, and recently the Meta model, which was released, it is trained on 1.4 trillion tokens. So that even though the parameters and vocabulary is lesser than ChatGPT, but it has much more tokens which it has been trained on. So yeah, that was it on the ChatGPT side as well. Now, moving on to the main topic of this particular webinar, where we wanted to understand how can we use ChatGPT or let's say any type of an LLM model in the financial services industry. And before actually sharing the use cases, I wanted to show you what has already been done in the industry. So these are 4 big banks which you must have heard of. They've already implemented LLMs or any sort of foundational models in their ecosystem. Well, just for example, Deutsche Bank they're working with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is again a big player in this LLM industry as well. What they're trying to do, there are so many billions of transactions happening daily, right? Not daily, in fact, in a minute. But they have built certain AI models which can predict any fraud in those financial transactions. But right now, they are building a proprietary model which can actually predict based on the past performance, and that LLM can be deployed in the systems, and automatically without any human intervention, it can spot the risk and the fraud transactions which are happening. Similarly, JP Morgan recently, after the release of GPT-4, they released a product called Index GPT. Since they offer wealth management services to their clients, one thing which was missing for them was personalized recommendation for their customers. So that is where what they have done, again built on the GPT model as a base, they have trained their model on all the information about their users, the what type of investments they are making, are they conservative, what are the different type of assets they usually invest in, what has been the recent market developments. And based on that, the particular model, or let's say the chatbot which the users have or the customers have, they can get personalized investment advice. Let's say if the market is not performing well, or if there's a sudden event which has happened, what should be the recommendation for a particular user? That is something which JP Morgan has built. Similarly, American Express is again using LLM. They're trying to analyze customer sentiment, customer interaction. There's so much of data on how the customers are giving feedback, what have been their interaction with their salespeople. They're capturing all that data, training the model, and understanding which customers are prone to being churned out, who they will lose. What are the interactions, how regular are the customer interactions, and what would be the lifetime value of a customer. All those calculations American Express are doing. And finally, Bank of America, BOFA, has built a product, Erica, but this is like an application which is just powered by LLM. Just a bit flavor on that. But yeah, that was it, what global enterprises are doing in terms of generative AI. But there are certain burning issues which I wanted to talk about, where Gen AI can play a part, right? So in 1950s and 60s, when the calculators were invented, before that, any large calculation was supposed to be done manually, right? It was a tedious task. It was cumbersome. It was not the best use of our resources. But when calculators came into play, the calculation part was outsourced to the calculators, and then the scientists or researchers were focusing more on the actual quality of work. So what personally I have seen, and this is something where I read on the internet, is generative AI is basically an open-ended calculators for content. content generation, content classification, and all those things which can be automated. You can send this out to the generative AI, and you can focus on the quality task. And these are some of the areas where improvements can be expected and are expected, right? So customer support is a big one. I mean, there are so many reports which are talking about how customer support, customer service can be automated, can be made more human in terms of the customer experience and all that. Because today, if you go and raise a concern, a ticket over, or let's say you're chatting with a chatbot on any particular website, it's not the best, right? Either you, if a particular bot is responding, either you have to wait for a lot of time to get a response, or if the resolution is not effective. So training those models based on all the interactions the customer have over the years, the models will be able to do it themselves. Similarly, management information reports, reporting and dashboarding, that is something which is again very human intensive, labor intensive, and prone to error. That is somewhere which we see in improvements in sentiment analysis in this particular industry is very important. The in terms of the customers don't stick around, right? If there are issues which are not being addressed, so that is where understanding how the customer's life cycle is going, what are the changes which we can make. Finally, in terms of credit risk, I will show a particular demo at the end of it, how credit risk can be assessed using GPT models. Portfolio management, we just talked about as use case in the earlier slide. And KYC again. KYC is again a very labor-intensive process. So many people are involved. A lot of documentations are shared here and there, right? But more often than not, if there are the models in today's world are not the best option in terms of if there's any particular lack of understanding. So the GPT models can help solve that. Right. And finally, in terms of opportunities, Lakshmi, if you can take this up.
Yeah, sure, Abhishek. So having understood how generative AI works, so one obvious question would be like, what would be the next steps? So what should I do with Gen AI? Is it relevant for me? So these are some of the questions that we generally face when we have interactions with the CXOs. So one thing is evident, as Abhishek was talking about, the focus is more on foundational models are very popular these days. You're able to see a lot of applications of these foundational models in the market. And automatically, the B2B as well as the B2C companies are looking at how to use these foundational models for enterprise use cases, like some of the use cases which Abhishek was talking about. So as an organization, what you can look at is, you need, always, I always keep this question at the beginning, like tech drives business or business drives technology. So don't fall for this peer pressure at this point of time, whether Gen AI, you should implement it or not. If you have a burning need, if you see that, okay, you have a lot of unstructured data and you'd be able to see some kind of an application using Gen AI on top of it, then it makes sense for you to adopt. Then automatically the next question is, should I buy a standard plugin product from the market, which we generally call it as a commercial off the shelf? Or should I look for developing an enterprise-wide solution using a service that is available from Azure, OpenAI kind of setups? So these are the two possibilities. One, looking for standard products that are available. Industry standard, market standard products have started coming out. But of course, as you know, AI, machine learning, deep learning, anything, if you take it, it's more about the training data over a period of time. If your problem is unique, if your data is unique, then you may need to train the whole model again with your data to improvise. But if your problem is generic, if you can focus on, if your problem is very, very generic to the industry as such, then you can look at commercial off-the-shelf product from the market. So both these options are available. Of course, finally, I'll go back to the management answer. It depends. It depends on your problem. It depends on your data. It depends on the product or the service that you're looking for. So looking at all these combinations, you can always find a way to get generative AI into your ecosystem. But of course, that's where we consultants can come and help you out on what would be the right way to take this forward. Okay, moving ahead, Abhishek, yeah. So in addition to what Abhishek was talking about, one thing you would have understood so far, generative AI is more about creating something new, creating some code, creating image, creating audio, creating text. These are the four broad possibilities that people are exploring today. So if you can generate or create this thing with the help of a deep learning model, what can you do with it? What kind of new opportunities that open up for you? So that's where, as Abhishek was pointing about, the most popular use case that's evidently used by all the industries, all the marketing people are the content writing. Very evidently used across. You would have heard news like some people are losing jobs in the content writing because the ChatGPT is able to generate content. Some people are losing jobs on the design side because generative AI is able to create some new posters, attractive posters. So that is one area definitely you can explore, especially with the digital acquisition being a very broad term, very popular term these days. How can you acquire customers in the digital world by giving across a personalized content, personalized communication through email content and everything? Definitely generative AI can help you out. Chatbots, you can always use it. Already all the banks, all the financial services institutions are looking at using chatbots, but mostly they are rule driven, or slowly they have moved to machine learning, NLP driven. But can I make it more intelligent? Yes. With the help of generative AI models, ChatGPT kind of setups, you can completely humanize the customer service. In fact, recently you would have read the news that for nearly 70 hours, somebody was interacting with the ChatGPT without even realizing it's a ChatGPT. In fact, for your learning, if you're more interested about ChatGPT, go and watch a video in YouTube where there is a popular video about asking the same question to 4 humans and one ChatGPT, and then you have to make a guess which one is a machine. Many a times people could not even guess which one is a machine. That's the kind of humanized interactions that machines can bring across. Search, algorithmic trading, analyzing a lot of unstructured data available in the form of news and other things. Traders can use it very effectively to understand more about the industry, the companies, and get into a recommendation whether you have to buy the stock or sell the stock. Especially in investment banks kind of a setup, this can be a very popular use case. Analysis and synthesis. Of course, the whole financial services world is driven by risk, legal, and regulations, isn't it? Can I analyze more interactions? Can I find out more risk by analyzing the documentation? And can I highlight the necessary risk by looking at all the documents? That's something is an evident use case. Of course, if you are from IT department of the financial services, then you can look at generating some quick interface designs for whatever applications that you're developing. That's something can be a possible use case. And today, I'm having interactions with different companies where they would like to develop this ChatGPT on top of the database. So the exciting data sets put across on top of it. Today, we are creating reports and dashboards. So now they would like to use a chatbot on top of the data warehouse and have an interaction, ask questions directly to the data warehouse, like, okay, who is the topmost salesperson for this particular region? Who did not meet the targets as of yesterday? Such kind of chat interactions can be created. Again, that is something which is possible. Of course, it takes a bit of time for it to be developed and for it to reach maturity, but definitely a heart of possibility with respect to this. Image generation, marketing again is a very popular area where new content generation and personalized image generation is something which is very much possible. You can also create some good customer support by bringing in image editors where every customer onboarded can receive personalized photographs, images, and you can set up a good onboarding experience. That is something you can target. Audio. Recently, I was discussing with one of the insurance companies. They were discussing about how can I train my insurance agents, because I'm sitting in headquarters across the country. There is a strong 10,000 strong workforce. How will I be able to interact and create some kind of training material for them through a GPT, through a voice, or through a chat? So just by plugging in across the policy documents, the cross-selling and the upselling training can be done for the employees, for the insurance agents in a more personalized way. That's something which is very much possible. So one thing is very clear, looking at all these things, there are so many things that you can do with ChatGPT, with generative AI in your industry, in your segment. It's about creativity. It's about understanding what your problem is and precisely trying to fix that problem with the help of this particular technology. Of course, there is a lot of exploration that we have to do together. We have to look at the data quality. There are certain risks associated with it, no doubt about it. But with the kind of excitement that this technology has brought to the industry, so benefit is outweighing a lot of risk. We can always work together on those risks and see how we can make this solution pretty much a successful one in your ecosystem. Okay, with that, without killing much time, we have 20 more minutes. We'd like to spend 10 minutes with you on the demo part. Abhishek, can we get on to the demo?
Yeah, sure, Lakshmi.
Perfect.
Great. So I had an interesting demo which I wanted to present to you guys. I mean, I'll share my screen over there. Basically, I have been trying my hands on with this. trying to build a particular chatbot using a GPT model, because there are different models out there, right? But there's no way to access them apart from ChatGPT, which you can do via the ChatGPT interface. But accessing it via APIs and all, which was becoming a challenge. But there's one service, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it or not. There's something which is called as a PO, and I'll share my screen and I'll show that. I hope the screen is visible to you all.
Yes.
All right. Not sure why this above panel is there. Just a minute. Some space. Right. So yeah, Poo is a product which I explored and I came across. It's a product built by Quora. I mean, we have all heard about Quora, the Q&A interface, or let's say the forum where we ask questions. This is a product which was built by them. What they've essentially done is they have built a front end application, or let's say a front end place where you can access all the different models which are released in the public. So let's say, I mean, obviously for ChatGPT, you can directly go to the ChatGPT website, but there are other models like Anthropic is a company which is similar to OpenAI. In fact, the OpenAI founders who left OpenAI, they started Anthropic. They have a product which they call as Claude. Claude is again also a LLM model, just like GPT-4. Similarly, recently Google Palm, not recently, Google Palm has been released for some time now. So these are different chatbots which you can access. Just a minute. I mean, not the limited access ones, the Claude Instant or ChatGPT. These are different chatbots which you can access over here. So what essentially I wanted to do was come to this. Just I'll show my screen over here. Just a moment. Right. So instead, it just not apart from giving you the access to the chatbot, it can also help you create chatbots. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to take in this particular industry specific to this. I was checking out insurance policies on this HDFC Ergo platform, and there's obviously a chatbot over here, but the pain point which I was facing was this is all very utterances based. Whatever the particular chatbot has been taught on, or the options available, it can only respond to that. And in fact, if you ask a very tell me about this policy, it's very robotic, I would say. I mean, if I just ask if, yeah, go ahead and proceed, it will ask me for more information, and then I'll have to add information. Then I'll get calls from people. So it's not very effective. What I essentially did was I downloaded their policy document. So I'm trying to basically create a customer specialist for HDFC's Ergo insurance policy Optima Restore. It's a very popular one, so you might have heard of it. So yeah, I basically downloaded the file in the PDF form. You can see over here. This is the brochure, and it contains all the information, and that this is what is required to train the model, right? I'm basically trying to train the LLM model. What I've done is the homework which I've done is extracted all the information from here. This is the context, all the information from the PDF. Again, I used ChatGPT for this. Just loaded on the PDF and extracted all the textual information. Obviously, I had to clean it to a certain extent, but yeah, I have kept it all ready over here. And what also I have done is create a prompt, which I'll come to later. So I've select on create a bot. There are several information which you might need to add over here. So let's say I'm trying to create a bot, so I'll name it HDFC Opti bot one because I've already created one for test purposes. But yeah, you can add a description. Again, when you're creating these bots, this can be for multiple purpose. I am using it for personal productivity. Since I am in the business domain, I have to write so many emails, right? So I have trained my bot accordingly. But what I'm trying to say is you give the name of the bot, the description. There are two models which you can use. One is Claude and the other one is ChatGPT, or let's say the GPT-4, GPT-3 model. Just a basic difference in case you try it out yourself. Claude is a model which might not give you the very short, concise answers, but it is very creative in nature. It can give you creative answers. And ChatGPT I've already used. So for this purpose, practical purpose, we are going to use ChatGPT as the base model, right? And let's say I have created this particular prompt. I want this bot to act as a customer specialist, and there are several pieces of information which I'm trying to capture. It's very important to when you are writing prompts, there are so many hacks and all which you must be seeing all over the internet, right? So there are few practice which I go. I mean, I specify the type of role the bot is, or let's say the model is going to play. What are the limitations? What is the expectations? And what are the guardrails around it? so that it does not go haywire. Because a big problem with this bots or let's say any particular LLM model is the hallucination, which is a potential risk. So I've tried to add at the end, instead of advisor, if there's any particular answer which this bot cannot answer, then it should be able to direct the person, or let's say the potential buyer, to a advisor instead of offering incorrect information. Otherwise it will be a penalty to the bot, and that negative reinforcement actually helps with the answers. Without further ado, what I'll do, I'll quickly take this extracted information from here and put it in the prompt visibility. Let's say, sorry, in the prompt. Here is the context. So I have added all the information. There's one limitation over here in terms of the information, which, so again, tokens, as you can see, it cannot take over 1750 characters. So what I'll do, I'll maybe change the Claude instant, and because it does not have that restriction. So I've added all the information which was provided. And then there are some additional settings which you can do. Like it can suggest replies. If you're asking questions, it can suggest replies based on its response. Again, I was talking to you about the temperature. You can control the temperature, how creative you want the answers to be. And yeah, I'll set it at a 0.7, which is the most common one. And with that, I will create the bot. I mean, this is just a 5 minute, in just 5 minutes, I've tried to create this bot. So what I would request is from the audience, if you can give us some questions on what exactly should we ask this bot. It has been trained. Just help us out over here. I mean, I'll start with one, but if you can put it in the chat box, what type of different questions you want to ask, I can put it up here. Right. So maybe if I'm a potential buyer and I'm coming and I want some information on the policy, like, give me info policy. So what it does, since it has already been trained on the model, it will go and find all the relevant information from the particular model and from the prompt, and then give the information out. So one limitation which I can see over here is in terms of the length of the responses, which is not ideal. I've specifically told not to go beyond 4 sentences, but this is usually that can be fine tuned in terms of the models which you use. But let's say I just given me an overview of my model. So I might ask, what would my premium be? It ideally should not answer this question, because without knowing information, yeah, and that is what it does. As you can see, I mean, you cannot accurately determine the premium for this policy. There are certain information which you require. Whom should you reach out to, especially as it was asked in the bot, and please get in touch. And it has a CTA, right? Similarly, if I ask questions in Hindi, because there is a good chance that people ask in Hindi, like let's say this. So if the model, or let's say the bot has the particular large language model has been trained on Hindi, or let's say any other language, it will be able to provide you in that context, and that is what it is done over here. It is basically translated the entire the conversation which we had earlier and provided it in Hindi. Obviously, it will work better if you use ChatGPT, but yeah, this is the whole idea. Any questions from the team, from the viewers, if you have any? Or Lakshmi, if you want to ask any questions to this bot.
I'm good. I'm just waiting for the participants to jump in. Would you like to try? Get your hands dirty, participants.
All right. I mean, we can move then. But yeah, my point was in terms of the bot which we have created, specific to what we have done over here. There are multiple use cases, right? So let's say in a particular mutual fund company, if they are launching a new NFO or a new scheme, the same thing, the bot can be trained on this particular information, and again, it can answer in a most humane manner, which is possible. And the best part is, I mean, obviously this is a paid service which Po provides, but if you have the API access to the bot, as you can see, what I'm trying to do is use a chatbot interface over here. So I'll just show something. Bot is publicly available. And in terms of APIs, it can also provide you APIs in terms of if you want to integrate with your own systems. So that is something which this bot does. Yeah, I think this was on the demo side. We can move to the other demo if we are done over here.
Yeah, we can go ahead. Yes, Abhishek. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Right. So give me a moment. I'll just present. There's one more thing which I wanted to show. I'll just stop my screen sharing. Just a moment. I'm trying to join it from a different system because I don't have access over here. Just a moment. Can the host give access to the demo system? The one of the system is there. Presentation access. Thanks. Right. So I hope the screen is visible again.
Yeah, go ahead, Abhishek.
Yeah. So over here, this is an interesting demonstration which I also wanted to cover. What essentially is happening. This is ChatGPT Plus, and I am using the GPT-4 model. As you can see, these are two different models which you can use. GPT 3.5 we have been using. This is the one which is publicly available to everyone. But if you come to GPT-4, there are different options which you can get. One is a default. Basically, it has been trained on a lot of information, so it can answer more concisely and more informatively, if that is the way. But there are other plugins which also comes with GPT-4. One is of the code interpreter. So code interpreter, I mean, there are basically three things which consist in GPT-4. One is you can add any particular type of data. So as you can see, there's a plus button where you can upload any information. Mostly it is in the form of CSV, Excel files, PDF and all. The model is like a Python sandbox. So it has 300 libraries in Python, which you can use to analyze different type of data. And finally, it can also give you outputs in the form of files, which you can further download. So what I've done is I've took one sample data and I'll just select it. Just a moment. So this is a sample data which I'll open over here and ask the model give me an data. So yeah, and the best part is while this model is working, it can actually show you the type of coding or let's say the background work which it is trying to do. So as you can see, it is running a Python code over here. It is importing a library pandas, which is generally used when you're trying to analyze any type of data or spreadsheets. And it's working, right? And based on that information, it gives me a quick info or let's say an overview of what are the different type of information. Just to give you background in terms of what this data set is, it's a sample data set consisting of different loan applications. It has several parameters which it has captured for every loan ID or let's say any loan application. And finally, what was the outcome of that application? Was the loan provided or not? So this is the set of 13 columns or let's say 13 parameters which are provided in this data. It can also give me some statistics based on this. For this, it again had done some work. It has tried to get some summary. One good part is if there's any missing values, any duplicate values in your data, it can help improve that. It can fill out the empty information by any common method, or let's say if there are any duplicates, it can remove. So cleaning part and data pre-processing, that is something which the model can do as well, and that is what it has done over here. Again, it has given me an overview. What and it is it kept continuing, so I'll let it complete first. And it actually tells me what are the missing values, where are the missing values, and what can be done. So, handle provided. Can you improve the data and add data? So this is like just a suggestion which I'm asking. And my point is, if you are someone who does not know how to code, or you want to analyze a particular data set, this is a good option to do such thing. And this will obviously give you options on what should be done. It will first give you suggestions on what are the best options in terms of cleaning a data, if it should go ahead with that information or not. So I mean, I'm just trying to follow, right? Removing rows, the method is simple. Computations. So I let the model complete the work. As you can see, for certain for a column loan amount where the data was not provided, it has basically taken a median value as for the data which is not available. And right now, what it is doing is it is modifying the data set which was provided there, and it will populate that information and create a new file on which we can further do, we can analyze further. So yeah, all missing values have been successfully filled. Right. Now I want to understand what are some of the insights which can come out of this data, and that is I'll simply ask, right? What are the top 10 insights? Can you use? So yeah, again, as I mentioned, in terms of libraries, there are so many libraries present. It can use the visualization part of things, and it will build upon the data set. What are the it might try to find the correlation between different columns. If there's a correlation between the type of let's say income and loan application being given or not, I'll let it work. Let's see what are the insights which the model can give. And while you're waiting, we can also see the work, right? It is trying to find what are the different type of plots it can build. But yeah, so we have some overview in terms of what the information it can provide you plots. Again, this can be downloaded if you want to use this data. It is giving a gender distribution. How does the just an overview, a descriptive understanding of your data set. Again, it is working on a different plot now. Let's see what it can come up with. So right now, what I'm trying to do is covering an overview of what the model is capable of. And finally, my idea is to understand if we can use a machine learning model and ask this GPT-4 model to predict, or let's say first train itself and then predict if a particular application should be given a loan or not. So that would be the end goal. But yeah, these are different outcomes. Let's see. And again, I mean, feel free if you want to ask any particular questions to the model. I'll be happily doing that. Yeah. So after giving the insights, or let's say the information now we have in terms of what is an overview. So since we have the paucity of time right now, what I'll do is I'll put my prompt next. Can you? So right now, once it has given the overview, now I'll try to predict in terms of what can be the underwriting process. XGBoost model is nothing but it's a machine learning model. It's a classifier which we can use to do some prediction. And since it's a binary outcome, yes or no in terms of loan application, it's a good model to use. But we can try for different models as well. So what it's trying to do is it's creating a boosting framework for the loan approval. There are some encoding which needs to be done in machine learning. If there's a textual data, it has to be converted in a either in a integer or any binary code so that the model can work on it. Now what it has done, it has split the database, the data set in two parts. Now it is training the model, and then it will evaluate itself on the test data and see what would be the the accuracy of the model. So as you can see, in terms of data which was in textual or string format, let's say a gender, it has given, it has encoded the values, right? 1 or 0, self-employed and all that. And now it is splitting 80%, 20% to see, to do the training and the testing. Let's see what's come out of it. Right. So it came out with an accuracy of 72.36%. But what you can also do is you can you can ask the model in terms of what are the different let's say what are some other models that we use. You can provide the actions. So let's say maybe we have got the accuracy of XGBoost, but there are other models which can also be implemented. So logistic regression, decision trees, and all that. what it will do is basically run the model for all the different models and on the same data set and see what is the accuracy for each one of them. So let's see what happens over here. These are all the common classifiers models which are used in machine learning. So let's see. Again, you can keep a check. Usually one good thing about code interpreter as a model is if there's any problem in terms of code, right, and it gets stuck, it has a self improvement model where if there's a particular problem which it identifies, let's say encoding was not done for this data, that is something which it identified itself and then took actions on how to improve it. That is something which I have seen work really well with the GPT-4 model. So yeah, let's see what happens over here. Just building the results. I think it is stuck now. That is one of the problems of GPT models as well. But let's see.
Okay, I think Abhishek, we need to open it up for questions. It's 8:32. We have crossed the time.
All right, sure, Lakshmi, we can do that.
The team, this is what we wanted to showcase it to all of you today. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll be happy to answer. Okay, then I think we don't have any questions. Thank you, Abhishek, for the session, and thank you everyone for joining and being part of the session. We'll send across the recording and we'll send across the guide too, as we promised, on prompt engineering. So looking forward to further interactions in the coming days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.